This week has been around hitting your sales targets. What I found is that the recorded versions end up getting more activity or more views on YouTube. So I'm going to do a live version, and then I am going to publish the recorded version. So we started with hitting your sales targets. If you really want to go deep into hitting your sales targets, watch the other two videos around building out that first part of the strategy around where do I organize time, energy, and attention, and then move into the tactics on how do I actually identify the specific accounts to go through. I'm going to walk through it quickly here, but there's more detail in those other two videos. The first thing is, if I have a $1.2 million target, that's my quota for the year, your decimal point could be in a different place. Your numbers can be in a completely different place. If you're talking about team of teams, you might have a $120 million number. Ultimately, the same logic and process works. Think of it like fractals. It's the same process repeating itself over and over again to create scale inside your business. Let's talk about it at an individual level. 1.2 million. Now, what I know based on my numbers is I have probably existing opportunities that are inside my pipeline. So I have existing, let's just call those E, opportunities that are inside my pipeline. Those existing opportunities are not going to get me to the 1.2 for the year. Those are typically some of the deals that just didn't get closed last year. They carried over, whatever they did. I've got some existing pipeline. Let's have that as the thing that really enables or creates a solid foundation for growth. Let's break down that 1.2 number though into figuring out where am I going to go get new business? Where am I going to go get new business? And the three numbers that I laid out from a new business perspective were, let's say I have my high end of deals that I'm getting are about 300K. Those are some of the larger deals. Typically, I can get a couple of those in a given year. Average deal size, 300K at the high level. I also know that I get some deals that are around 100K per year, and I have some deals that are at the 50K per year. The reason why I want those three numbers, and they have to be your numbers, not my numbers, your numbers. The reason I want those numbers is I want to start to figure out, okay, what needs to be true in order to hit my number just with 300K deals, just with 100K deals, and just with 50K deals. We can do the math really quick. It requires 24 50K deals, it requires 12 100K deals, and it requires 4 300K closed won deals. The other thing we went through is we said, okay, well, how many deals, remember the old Tootsie Roll Pop thing? How many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Roll Pop? How many deals does it take for me to get to those 4 1 deals? My number historically was for every 5, I bring in 2. As an enterprise rep, I had to have 5 large opportunities I was working on in any given year, could see it for the future year. And I would put that in place in June. So in June, I would know what the number looks like next year. Those 5 deals that are out there, I know that likely there's a high probability that 2 of those are going to come together, but I have to have 5 at that point in time. Now, if 3 come together, it's going to be a really good year. If only 1 comes together, ideally I live to fight another day, but know your number. So for me, let's use my numbers. I had to have 5 to get to 2. So in this instance, I need to have 10, right? I need to have 10 that are in there. And again, we're playing with math, but we're working the math backward to figure out exactly how do we go after this stuff. And again, I'm going to repurpose this or repost this as the podcast for this week. And we'll talk a little bit about production and how that's working. But so I need 10 of those. On the 12 side for these smaller ones, let's just say I've got a 50% close rate on those, arbitrary, right? So 50%, maybe I need 24 of those deals. And then on the 50K deals, let's say my close rate's a little bit higher. Those things move a little bit faster. The speed at which they go through, deal cycle is a little bit different. Maybe I need, 36 of these in order to get to the 24, whatever those numbers are. Again, I want 3 distinct paths that are going to get me to the number. If all 3 of these things work out and everything goes the way that we love it to go, the way that it looks like in the Excel spreadsheet that we put together or that our leadership gives us and says, hey, it all kind of maths out. If all of that comes together, now I hit 3.6 million this year. And heck, we're doing a lot of interesting things. We know that they're not going to all work. But what happens if I get half of these? I get, maybe half of the 100K and a couple of these 50K. I hit my number. So I create 3 paths to hit that number. That's the whole point behind it. So then we laid out and we said, all right, Where do these come from? Like, what does a 300K deal look like? How big is the company? Size, revenue, number of people, leadership structure, market that they sit in. All the individual details or individual pieces of information that say, hey, when I'm working with a company that looks like this, smells like this, feels like this, it will turn into something that could be a 300K deal. I want the same information for the 100K version and for the 50K version. Now here's where this gets really cool and kind of sexy. Number one, that 300K deal, I could work on a smaller segment inside an organization and get a 50K deal as the initial entry point, and now that becomes an opportunity for the following year. So their existing customer that I'm working with, depending on how your model is, right? So it's just, this kind of depends. There's a lot of nuance here, but the structure is I want to design a plan with certain numbers that gives me 3 paths to hitting my number, and I want to know who fits in those buckets at its simplest mode. Right? So those 300K deals, companies that are in this bucket could end up doing a smaller deal and solve for 1 or 2 of those other buckets. Now, there are going to be much smaller companies that are fit into these areas. So this is, I think, where a lot of people get kind of twisted and turned sideways when talking about things like ideal customer profile. Like, how do you figure out your ideal customer profile? What kind of fits into an ideal customer profile? So if you've seen the model, it looks like this territory plan. These are a combination of yes/no statements that help us identify that target for that list of target accounts. And what we're building out here is I would like to have, if I need to get 10 deals, again, working through my numbers, know what your numbers are. Don't let somebody else tell you what your numbers are. Know your numbers. I want to be targeting 25 accounts to get to those 10 opportunities in any given year and have 25 of them that I'm constantly working with. I'm paying attention to them. I'm watching what they're doing in the news. Every week I'm following certain things that they're doing, indicators. I might be following their ticker symbols so that I know any new news that's coming out, and I'm reading reports associated with those companies. I've got 25 target accounts where I know them better than they know themselves because I can work across the organization. So 25 there. Inside this other area, this is going to be a little bit different. At any point in time, you might have 15 to 10 that you're focused on, and you're constantly moving them in and out. So they're not really target accounts. They're just things that you're aware of. You're just kind of signals that you're looking at. And then these ones, I don't know, come up with your own way of looking at it. I typically wouldn't, I think that one's a tougher one for me because they start to feel a little bit more transactional. That might actually end up being where some of the inbound stuff comes to you. But know your numbers across each of these. How many companies do I need to have in each of those buckets? And then what kind of systems and process can I put in place to help support that? All right, here's where we get into the real numbers, the interesting stuff for this week. So we did all of this stuff. You've got video that shows even a little bit more detail in the other discussions earlier in the week. I've got a plan where I've got an idea of a plan that I need to work, where ultimately what I'm going to do is design things to get to 4 300K deals, 12 100K deals. And for right now, let's ignore the 24 50K deals, but they'd be part of the whole piece. How do I get there? Well, if I look at my pipeline that I'm creating, pipeline created, and I'm hitting on all of my numbers relative to those 10 deals that I want to be working on, again, using my math, 2 out of every 5 kind of thing. If I've got those things and I've got the pipeline and everything looks good, meaning I'm creating new opportunities, I'm meeting with people, I'm able to get meetings, don't stress about the activity because you're already doing the right work in the right order to get the right people together for pipeline that's created. So don't stress about the activity. If you've got pipeline that's created, the next question I want to be able to answer is that pipeline being developed? Is it moving through the sales process? Not their decision-making process, but our sales process for forecasting. Are we increasing probability of sale? Are we doing the work and are we moving through the gates? If either of those things are true, don't worry about all the other stuff in the background because you're already doing the right activity to get there, meaning you're seeing the results. If, however, you are not seeing the results relative to pipeline being created, or you're not seeing results related to pipeline being developed, then you've got to start asking some questions. So let's turn it into some additional detail. And again, this is going to be repurposed for the podcast. If you're listening to this on the podcast and you want to see the video and you want to see the whiteboard work, just go to our YouTube channel and you'll be able to see that there. If my challenge is pipeline development, meaning I create these opportunities, because every time I have a conversation, I feel they've got a live one. Heck, they've asked for a proposal, so I'm going to go ahead and give it to them. Things aren't developing, well, then we've got to go through and we've got to figure out, okay, well, what's their decision-making criteria? You can use things like MEDIC or MEDPIC or whatever other letter they decide to add to it next week. You can use these models that are out there, these frameworks or tools where you can align with a specific letter and say, okay, is this the area that I need to focus on? Is it, for me, from a simplifying perspective, I like to use the account plan framework. Like, what problem are we solving for? Who has it? Who's impacted by it? Who cares about the people who have are impacted? Cool thing about carers is they typically have money. A lot of times we talk to the people who have the problem, but the people who have the problem don't have any money. If they did, they would have already figured out a way to solve for that problem. So let's identify the people who are impacted by it and who care about those people and see if that becomes another money source. But that's account planning, and you can go into a deep level of detail in some of the stuff that we've recorded around it if you go to the sales tactical skills playlist. So if it's a pipeline develop problem, then I have to ask myself, am I actually designing for next logical steps? Am I helping support conversions inside that organization? If not, then let's solve for that challenge there. Let's do better call planning. Let's do better account planning. That's all in this pipeline developed. What might end up happening is you might be qualifying, bringing in the wrong opportunities, like getting happy ears and getting super excited about it. And now they're filling up your pipeline with deals that really aren't real. So let's check that. If things are developing when you create pipeline, then good. You got a good process on that side. Let's go ahead and figure out the pipeline created side of things. So how do we create pipeline? This is where a lot of people want to spend a lot of time and activity and all that kind of attention on that. This is that demand gen side of things. If you have a marketing team who's helping you create pipeline, you're getting leads from marketing, that's a good way to do it. You get some stuff from marketing. Let's call that one-to-many. You get one-to-many leads that come into you, and you get to have an initial discovery call with someone. You learn some information about them, and then based on that learning of information, you should be able to say, I see a scenario where we would work with each other, so now I create pipeline, I create an opportunity, a deal gets put into HubSpot or Salesforce, right? So that's one place that we get those folks. That is like pennies from heaven. I'd love to see more of those things. When they do come in, I get really excited about them. I'm really happy about them. I do not count on that to operate the business or operate the business within organizations that I'm working on. If we start counting on that, we're putting our success in the hands of other people that may or may not be able to perform on that side. So let's control what we can control. So let's talk about one-to-one outreach. One-to-one outreach. The one-to-one outreach should be to companies that are in your target account list, either in the 25 that are in focus all the time, the large ones, or the 15 to 10 that are in focus periodically based on what's happening inside their business. In the other videos, I talk about the importance of things like fiscal years and compelling events and all that other kind of stuff. 25 that are in focus, the 15 to 10 that are in focus at any other given point in time, one-to-one outreach. Who do we reach out to in this instance? Well, we talked about the buckets of companies. We've identified them. We have a target account list. They should align with our ICP. Well, what about our ideal customer profile from a person perspective? Who are the 3 people inside the organization that we should be talking to? What are the roles of those people? Who knows those people? Who knows the people who know those people? How do we get in front of them? So let's make sure we know who the people are. So I'm going to go all like kind of, is this Sesame Street? Who are the people in your neighborhood, right? Who are the people in your neighborhood? They're the people that you meet when you're walking down the street. Like, how do we figure out ways where we can go out and meet more of these kind of people that we want to meet with? Now, there are a couple places we can go. They congregate at events. I'm a big event person. I'm speaking at a number of events later this year, excited about it, want to speak more. There is amazing stuff that can happen both in the room, in those sessions, in the breakout sessions, but even more exciting, it's the stuff that happens in the margins, the stuff that happens when you're walking around the hallways. So make sure you've got a strategic approach that you're taking to events and not just hoping that things happen organically. So you can design for success. So we can go to events. That's one place where folks congregate. We can go to community groups. That's another place where folks congregate. We can go to platforms. That's another place where folks congregate. But once we know who the people are, then let's figure out how do we connect with those people directly in an environment where they hang out, where they cluster, where they group. So once we know who the people are, who the people know, who know the people that we know that we want to get to know and all of that kind of stuff, then we start to figure out, okay, well, what's the outreach look like? Well, outreach can happen, and this is activity data, and you've got to know your own numbers. Like I can send an email out to somebody and get a response that might be different than somebody else's response, or a direct message to somebody, or a text message to somebody. Working on this with Sean. Sean is our new marketing intern inside the business. If he's following and engaging with somebody on LinkedIn, it's a little bit different than if I'm following and engaging with someone on LinkedIn. Know what those roles are. Now, there's other people that he's going to be much better served to follow and engage with. Those are going to be people who are in his demographic. They're going to be people who just recently graduated from school, or getting into business, building out a business, whatever that is. But know who the people are, know the way that you want to engage with them, and then start testing the activity that works relative to engaging with them. So how many direct messages am I going to send? How many emails am I going to send? How many phone calls am I going to send? I'm one of those old crotchety people who does not answer my phone if I don't recognize the phone number, except the only way to get me, this is it, and the tactic drives me nuts, but except if you happen to call me 2 minutes before I'm getting ready to get on a call with somebody else, and it might be the first time I'm meeting with them, and I'm thinking they might be calling because they've got something's happened, or 2 minutes after. So if you want to cold call me, best time to cold call me is at the 28-minute mark, the 32-minute mark, the 58-minute mark, and the 2-minute mark. Those are the times. So there you go. You've got your cheat code on how to cold call me and get me to pick up. All right, so we've got some way that we're reaching out to folks. Well, in a given week, we could just do activity for the sake of doing activity. Well, what if we break this down a little bit further? And we've got, let's say 5 accounts that we're working on this week or today. Maybe it's today. Let's do that. So I've got 5 accounts, 5 target accounts that I'm working on today, times 3 individual contacts. I'm going to do 15 outreaches today. And then I'll do 15 tomorrow. And then I'll do 15 the next day. If I do that on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or 3 days a week, now I have 45 new outreaches that I've done. Within a 2 to 3 week period, you are going to figure out really quickly how much does your outreach suck because you're either contacting the wrong people or you're communicating the wrong way, or how awesome your outreach is because people are responding to your message and they're booking time. So in addition to the outreach that you do to those 15 people times 3 days a week. And again, I've done this for years with teams that I work with. The fundamentals work when you work the fundamentals. So this could be 45 connections out. We should get some kind of data. Then you know your number. Hey, if I send out 45 of these, do I get 3 meetings? Okay, good. Now you know your numbers. You know you need to have 45. If you want to have 3 meetings, you want to do 45 of those activities in a given day. But they're your numbers, not somebody else's numbers. I don't like benchmarks. The reason I don't like benchmarks is because benchmarks typically lack context. And when you're doing things that lack context, you start making decisions that are based on somebody else's business and not your business. You are responsible for operating your territory. You're likely a highly paid sales representative or customer success representative or SDR or whatever you are. You're paid to perform. Here's a roadmap that you can use to help you perform in that way so that you can get paid properly for the work that you're doing. If you're doing all of this outreach and you're not getting the numbers, then let's go figure out what's wrong with the outreach. Is it the people I'm contacting? Is it the way that I'm contacting them? Or is it the message that I'm communicating to them? Break down, apply a little bit of algebra, Let's isolate for specific variables, solve for those specific variables, get the conversions that we're looking for, and then do more of the things that work for you, not the things that work for somebody else. The world is full of a bunch of things that people talk about working for somebody else, and then you start to feel guilty, you start to feel less than, you start to feel all of those things, but we're getting away from hitting your sales targets. Ultimately, what I want to have is a goal. And then I want to have 3 ways that I'm going to have a chance to hit that goal. And then I want to have a clear level of structure around where I'm going to focus time, energy, and attention. Then I want to focus that time, energy, and attention on getting in front of people to get to that meeting so that I can start creating pipeline. That is how you build a sales plan. That is how you build structure in to go out and execute. That is how you build data points in to determine, am I making the conversions or not? If you'd like help with this, I'm happy to help you with this. Or you can go through any number of the resources that I've got available, whether it's the podcast on Spotify, the videos on YouTube, or sessions like this. I'd like to know whether or not this is helpful. Give me the feedback. Where would you like to see me go a little bit deeper? But ultimately, as we work backwards, we have a goal. We have a three-pronged approach to go after that goal. We know where we're going to focus attention from a territory perspective. And if we're not creating pipeline, then we have to solve for it. If we are creating pipeline and it's not developing, we have to solve for it. Any other time, energy, and attention put as a revenue leader, as a revenue professional, any other time, energy, or attention put into things that are not solving for pipeline created, pipeline developed, I would say you're missing the mark. Actually, you're missing the mark. Now, if all of the numbers are coming together, meaning you are creating pipeline and you are developing pipeline, but you're struggling with fulfillment on the other side, then let's focus time, energy, and attention on the processes and the other parts of the business. Let's partner with others across the business and see how we can help with fulfillment. Is one of the reasons that we're struggling on the fulfillment side is because we're bringing in the wrong customers? Nobody would do that. I mean, I know a quick way to figure out whether or not that's happening. If you're bringing in the wrong customers, those customers are not growing and they are likely churning. They are frustrated. Your customer success team is frustrated. So if you're doing the pipeline creative, pipeline develop stuff and the other parts of your business aren't working, then let's focus time and attention there. Don't just keep asking for more in this side if you're not able to do what you need to do on that side. So there you go. Simple version, 23 minutes of process, framework, and thinking to help you execute on your sales targets. If you do this work, which is hard work, this is not, heck, somebody's going to look at that and say, what is all of that math and why does it look so complex? It's not complex, it's hard. You can simplify it by breaking it down into the small part. Remember that 300K really was only about 10 opportunities with a 5-to-2 ratio on close rate. 10 opportunities, and those 10 opportunities are going to come from 25 target accounts. And we just laid out a plan that inside a 3-day period, you should be able to get to 15, get some communication going to 15 of those accounts. So break things up into small pieces, aim small, miss small, as they said in the Patriot. I hope you enjoyed this. Again, this ends the session relative to sales targets. I want to share a little bit about how we're structuring the podcast as we go forward. On Mondays, I'm going to release with guests. My goal with guests is that the content is released within 72 hours of the recording. Might be off that a little bit. I have gotten into a bad situation where we've recorded a lot of content and then not pushed it live. I've got episodes with Will Aiken, Jared Robin, and Martin Schultz that are going to go live here in the short term. Jeff Conroy recorded recently. Looking for new guests to bring on. If you've got recommendations, please share them with me. Anybody who can speak to, at an expert level, leadership, culture, revenue, execution, and help people learn things that they can apply in their roles in the context of leadership, culture, revenue, execution. Those are really interesting conversations to have. And what I find is professionals typically are really good at either the culture or the leadership piece and the execution piece. They may or may not be focused on the revenue side of things, but if you're a professional in one area of life, we can probably have a really interesting conversation around your process, your approach, that will help someone think differently and do differently about their process or approach. So we guest on Mondays. On Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, videos building up to this Thursday video where I summarize what we've talked about throughout the week, pull things together, and then push that live in the podcast. So there should be 2 episodes that go live every week, one with a guest on Monday, and then a second with me doing something like this, either on Thursday or Friday, depending on scheduling. The theme this week is executing on your sales targets. The themes in previous weeks have been things around like mindset, skill set, and tool set. We've talked about that. We've talked about leadership, culture, revenue, and execution. Based on some things I'm seeing, we might even revisit the whole difference between coaching, training, and mentoring. We've talked about goal setting and execution, leveraging your game face. We've talked about a number of topics, but there's always this weekly topic that will organize around either getting things done, execution, generating revenue so that we can fund the things that we want to get done, culture, how we do the work, problem solving, decision making, communication, and leadership, how we lead self better, lead teams, and then lead teams of teams. As a reminder, that revenue challenge inside your business is likely a culture challenge in disguise, and culture starts with leadership. Leadership starts with self. And if you are looking for a leader, start with a mirror. Hope you enjoyed this. Please share feedback. Share it with someone who you think might find it valuable. And if you want to hear the edited version of this, you can always do that on the Find My Catalyst podcast. Thank you and have an awesome day.